in arts and stuff because they didn't have this performing school. So I used to go to that and, did some stuff. Well, I knew they had this jazz ensemble where they would pick, but it was only instruments. So it was like a keyboard, sax, drums, bass, whatever. And they would pick one kid out of the entire Denver Public School District for that instrument. And so it was a huge honor. You had to be like either a junior or a senior. Like you couldn't even try out unless you were in the upper levels. And I remember they announced, my junior year, they announced we're going to pick a vocalist now. We decided to have a vocalist.
Wow.
And the thing, and so my music teacher, who was my hard ass, Miss Williams, she was like, well, you got to try out. And I'm like, okay, jazz, but I've been singing show choir, and this is the, so she's like, no, so she started giving me all these jazz CDs. She gave me Diane Reeves was the first album, and she's like, listen to this, listen to Take 6, listen to these jazz things, and get your Diane Shore, all these people to get yourself ready, for this. And so I went ahead and studied that stuff, auditioned, and I made it. So I was the one vocalist. So that I think for me, honestly, that was the moment that it really clicked to me. It's like, this is a huge honor because they pick one kid out of all of Denver. Yeah. And we opened for like Art Blakey, like major jazz, international jazz musicians. When they would come to Denver, they would pick us, and I recorded, did my first recording session in the studio, and I realized this was very, very special. But still, when it was time to go to college, in my little brain, I did the same thing that I did when I started high school. I said, okay, I guess I'm done now. I'm done. It's now to be serious and have a career and be
But where did that come from?
I don't know. Right.
And everything that's happened, right? You have people that God places these people in our lives. You have these milestone people that push you, right? It's like you're on this journey, and then something will shift. Someone will help you shift, and it'll open up an avenue or talent or something you didn't even think about. Right. So you seem to be on that, right? And then
I stopped.
Yeah.
And you know what it was?
Because that's why I wonder. I don't mean to cut you off. No, that's why I wonder who was the driving force behind it. Because sometimes it's as teachers. And you've been in education, and I taught elementary, but we learned when you go through and you become an educator, there's intrinsic and then there's extrinsic. Right. So initially, everything is extrinsic, and then all of a sudden it clicks. Right.
It
comes from within.
Right.
So I'm listening for because it sounds like it was there, and then somehow it just went away.
I think that, and I will say this, I think that my parents, I was a very obedient, kid. Like you do what your parents tell you to do. And I think, honestly, while they knew how to nurture and encourage me in a school environment, I don't know if they knew enough about a music career to push me so hard that I would do that. You know what I mean? And my dad, while he played, he never went pro. And so while he wanted that to be a really nurtured hobby and interest in me, he never said, and you can become this as a profession.
And I think that's key, because I think that if your parents don't have the tools, my parents, same thing, as a creative spirit, I can say now, I was a writer at 9. Right. A little story that ended up years later becoming a print piece. Wow. But I can say now, but I didn't have it. They nurtured me and encouraged me through education.
Right, exactly.
But there wasn't anyone that said, you can get paid to write, other than a traditional form of writing. Right. I ended up not even, now I am that writer. Right. That has books. But prior, I didn't know anything about copywriting and advertising.
Absolutely. They didn't. And I don't know if it was that generation, you need a job. Like you need a job.
And the job wasn't that creative thing that you diddled with and you played with and you toyed with.
And my parents weren't like, you got to get a job, but it was definitely clear that they were not pushing the music as a career. And I always did very well in science and math. And so what got more nurtured, and not so much from my parents, but definitely from my teachers, was being a young black girl who was good in physics and, you know, calculus and these things. I was good in the arts, but I was also good in the science and math. And so I got more nurtured. Yeah. That was more tangible.
Yeah. Well, that's also what they valued more, right?
Exactly.
So our parents valued those traditional careers. Yeah. I can put my hand on a doctor, lawyer. Right. You know, I can put my hand on all those, the engineer, the scientist. Right. I can put my hands, and I know even if they're on, not even on television, but even that's the solid. I know you're going to get a paycheck. I know that I understand that. Yeah. I don't. And as much as my dad was all about education, I know he didn't know what a copywriter was.
I know. And I think that's why. And my mom wasn't so like, you must be an engineer and stuff, but the teachers were saying that, and I think that they were kind of nurturing her to prepare me to do well. And you know, when I look at colleges to consider, you know. And it's funny because I had a black principal at that time in high school, and she had pulled me to the side and was like, you know, what college are you going to be applying to? And I was like, I'm only going to HBCU. Mm-hmm. Oh, so okay. I was very clear on that because I'm like, I'm tired of being the only black kid of 3 of us in these AP classes. So like, I know there's other smart black kids. Mm-hmm. Like, I know that this is not, you know, something. And I'm like, I want to be in that. And being in Denver, I knew that I wanted to be around other black people. And she was very like, well, you know, you could probably get into like an Ivy League. Mm-hmm. You've got a really high GPA, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm not going to apply because if I get in it, y'all are going to make me go. Like, you're going to say, I got to go to those schools. And I don't want to go to those schools. Yeah. So she, you know, so my mom at least was supportive definitely of me going to a HBCU. And
but that was still smart of you to say, let me narrow these choices, right? Because I know how they are.
I know how they.
Let Stanford come through.
Yeah, or Yale, that's it. Everyone's going to be, and my mom is going to listen to that.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
So I need to not even put that in my option box. And I was honest with my mom. I was like, I don't want to apply to any schools in Denver. I don't want to be in Denver. So I want to be, you know, with other black people. And so she was okay with that. And so once I had done well in sciences, so engineering was the one that they were kept, you know, all the careers to look, you know, engineering, you're a black woman engineering. And so I knew very little about what engineering meant, but it sounded like what I was supposed to do. And so I was like, okay, when I get to Howard, I'm going to be in engineering. And I decided, I don't know why, but I said chemical engineering. I didn't even really like chemistry in high school. But chemical engineering, like that sounded right.
And smart.
Right, sounded smart.
Yes.
And then someone had taught me about biomedical, and I was like, biomedical engineering. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I have no clue what that does, but yes. Yeah. And my mom couldn't say, because she didn't know what it was either, but okay.
It sounds really
smart. Oh, yeah. Sounds really smart. It's really good. And I got to Howard, and I was a chemical engineer for about 2 weeks in engineering because once they showed me that sequence, and I was like, that's what I have to take? And I was like, oh no. And they're like, typically it's a 5-year, I mean, while you can do it in 4 years, most our students take 5 years to finish it. And I was like, no, I'm not doing this.
Like, no.
But even still, I still didn't go into the creative. I still was like, okay, well, what else can I be?
Oh, yeah.
What else can I be? And I enjoyed science.
Because titles and labels are really important to our culture.
Yeah. And I was in science now. And now I'm also feeling, oh my God, I got to figure out a major. Like, because I'm oh my God, I'm here now. I got to figure out a major.
Yeah. And how many majors did you have? Because I know as a creative, because that's what I am. I had... I had 3-4 majors before I graduated.
Oh, yeah, I had
4.
I started off with chemical engineering. I only had, it ended up only being 2, only because my counselor was like, just slow your roll. You got 4 credits right now. Like, I'm like, just chill out. Let's get the basics. Take it first. And then we can kind of figure this out. So I just took kind of the basic classes the first year. I took the sciences because I knew I wanted to do something in science. And by the time my second year started, I decided physical therapy. Because, and the early reason I picked physical therapy, at that point, I liked to work out, I liked exercise, and when I looked at the courses, they sounded interesting. I was like, ooh, anatomy and physiology, exercise, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, that's what I'll do. That's what I'll be.
You know, nowhere in this did you think
no creative
drama?
Nope. Mm-mm. Now, I was in Howard's gospel choir.
HBCU. I know they're doing.
I was at Howard's
singing up in there.
Yep. I was at Howard's gospel choir, and I mean that choir was intense. It was very serious. You had an audition. It was a very intense audition, but I was used to that. I had done so many auditions. I was fine. I didn't necessarily think. I only tried out because again I was like, I'm not doing music. And what ended up happening was my little first week at Howard on campus, they do all these little activities to connect, all these social activities. And there was this girl named Tina who was like, she had a flyer. She's like, oh, they're trying out for gospel. Is there anybody that sings? Because I want to try, but I don't want to try it by myself. And my roommate knew that I sang. And she was like, Kenny sings. And I'm like, shh, I don't sing anymore.
Right.
I'm done. I'm done. She's like,
that was my past life.
She's like, oh, Kenny, can you just at least go? I said, I'll go with you to audition. But I don't think I'm going to audition. Like I'll just go for support. And she's like, please. So we go, and
talk about some sisterhood.
These girls were singing their faces. Like I could hear the auditions, and I was like, oh hell, I'm definitely not trying out.
They came in Howard.
Right? I was like,
oh yeah.
And my girlfriend, the girl teacher, she's like, well, are you going to try? I was like, I don't know. Like they're like singing their faces off. Like I don't know if I can sing like that anyway. Like I don't. And the choir director, he was like 6'6", big black man. Miss Paul, Arphelius Paul Gatling. He stood outside. Who's next? And he looked at me. Are you next? What are you doing? I'm like, well, what you here for? I'm like, okay, yes. I'm singing. I was coming to support. He's like, what do you mean you coming to support? You got to sing. If you're not going to sing, you need to get out of here.
Right.
And I was like,
just taking up space.
Right. And I was like, okay, no, I'm going to sing. And this is my song, my hymn. I said, and I sang and I made it. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. But again, still, I'm like, I don't want to be a singer. I'll sing here. That's fine. That's enough. But that's it. I'm not singing. And so I got into physical. So it wasn't until about my junior year and school was really hard. Physical therapy program is incredibly difficult. It was a very challenging. It's now a doctoral program.
Wow.
It was a very hard program, and it was very stressful. And I was like, what the hell am I doing? And that was finally when I was like, you know what, I should just be singing.
So you like me, right brain, left brain.
Yeah.
You're like me, all my left brain was being utilized until I discovered.
Yep. And I started complaining. I was like, you know what, I'm supposed to be singing. Like, I should be majoring in music. I shouldn't be doing this hard ass stuff. Like, I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, this is stressful.
You're talking to yourself.
Right. And I'm telling people, I sing, Like, I'm in gospel choir. Like, I don't have to do this. Like, this is not. And so everybody's just like, okay, And I'm like, and I told my teachers, I was about to quit. I said, I'm going to quit physical therapy and I'm going to do something creative. And I was there. I was like, because this is too hard. Yeah. And it's stressing me out. Mm-hmm. So I planned a meeting with like 2 or 3 of the faculty members in physical therapy, sat them down, and I said, I think I'm gonna stop this. They're like, Kenny, you have like all A's and B's. Like, what are you? And I was like, no, but this isn't it. And I know it's not it. I'm like, and they're like, well, what are you gonna do? And I was like, well, I'm not exactly sure, but I think I should be doing something creative because that's, really what my background was and what I did a lot of. And they were like, you're doing so well in this program. Like, you're really doing well in this program. It's just stressful. It's normal. And so so I decided not to quit. But that was my first time that I actually finally confronted something is wrong. Like I knew, because I was getting good grades. Yes. It wasn't like I was failing out.
So your inner spirit was like,
yes, something is off.
Yes.
But but at that point now, you're 19, 20, pride, and you're supposed to do what the Joneses do. Like you really aren't.
You're in that traditional. This is where you're supposed to be.
Absolutely.
Everybody else, society says.
Absolutely. I definitely was not.
And you were not bucking the system.
I was not going to buck the system. And so I graduated and I got a really good job. And I knew, though, the creative in me, I was feeling more and more torn. But I was excelling. This was the weird thing. I was excelling so much in my science physical therapy life, but I was getting more and more torn because it was taking me further away from being able to be creative.
See, that's that inner spirit, that inner soul. Yeah. It's like we're born with. It's like the child, right? They talk about when we give birth to children. Right. You have this gut feeling about what's happening. All of this is.
But I couldn't put my. I just knew. So what started to happen? I start feeling like I double me, like because like I said, I was doing really well. I was getting good jobs. I did really well with my patients. It was really good. The creative me, so I would try to sneak home. I would write. I would do these open mic, poetry things.
Double life.
Right? I felt like I was living this double life. I really do this on the side, and.